Alrighty, welcome to the Excitable Soul podcast. Here we are interested in all things purpose. We want to know where and how people find meaning and connection in their lives. In every episode, we're going to be hearing the real life stories of how people have uncovered, understood, and unleashed their own unique sense of purpose. Our hope is that we can all learn from the stories and the journeys of our guests so that we can better find a sense of purpose in our own lives. I'm host James Glover, performance coach and purpose nerd. I'm incredibly excited to be exploring these stories with you. So let's get going, shall we? Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today's guest is Jinty Morgan. Jinty served 25 years in the British Army in the Royal Corps of Signals. During her service, she was deployed to Kosovo, Iraq, and New Zealand. She's a keen sportswoman representing the Army in athletics and badminton. Jinty is the director of Hire a Hero, a charity that supports service leavers through their transition into civilian life. She joined the charity as operations director in 2016, bringing a huge amount of knowledge and experience of the welfare support that our service women and men might need during their transition from service. Jinty lives in South Wales with her husband Lloyd, who is a serving officer, and they have Maisie the pug and Sooty the cat. Jinty brings a deeply unassuming perspective to the big questions of our podcast, not really noticing her own magic in the way I know you all will. Plus, she tells a story of her husband and her wedding dress that will make you wish you had been deployed overseas. So beware of that one. We'll be posting a link to Hire a Hero in the show notes. Enjoy the conversation. All right, so welcome to the Excitable Soul podcast. Today I've got with me Jinty Morgan. Jinty, thank you massively for coming to be a part of the podcast. Wonderful to have you with us. How are you doing today?
I'm good today. Apart from the weather, I would say. I'd like to get some sun.
They say that spring is trying to spring, but it hasn't yet sprung. There's no kind of visible evidence of it just yet.
Definitely not in Wales.
And how's the world for you at the moment? What's happening?
Going through a little bit of a change. I think I'm in the routine, shall we say, at the moment. My husband's literally deployed with the military. He deployed on the 25th of January. Yeah. So I'm on a 14-week countdown till his ARNA, 20th of June.
Wow. We were just talking before the podcast about kind of just how that turns your reality upside down for a while, doesn't it? Like there are shifts and changes to routines, and then there are things that kind of create massive disruption that you have to figure out. And how, because this isn't your first rodeo as far as that's concerned. How are you finding it all?
This one is not the first, because my husband's now been in the military 30 plus years and I served 25.
Yeah.
But this is the first one that I have done where I have been a veteran.
Ah, okay.
So it is slightly different in that respect, but I'm getting there. Good days and bad days.
Yeah, nice. Maybe we can explore a little bit of that as we kind of go through our conversation. But we were again connected, you and I, by a mutual acquaintance, the force of nature that is Anne-Lee Howling, and she basically just said, James, if you really want to talk about purpose and purposeful experiences and where people find meaning and connection, you need to go and speak to Jinty. Because she's got some stories, and you and I had the opportunity to kind of pick up the phone and meet and have a conversation or two, and it really struck me that you've been on an incredible journey through your life in the military and the kind of the transition out of it, and how you kind of look forward and into the future, and the way in which you've made sense of what meaning and connection really looks and feels like for you. So I'd love to explore a bit of that journey, if that's okay, and maybe just start with some of the kind of the experiences that have really shaped who you are in the world today.
I think if I sort of look back at my 40 odd years of life. Obviously, I think everybody looks back at their childhood and sort of looks and realizes that when you get to a certain age, mum and dad are your big influences, and they
Yeah.
shape who you are, etc. Brothers and sisters and family. But the big turning point, I think, for me was when I was in secondary school, and I was asked by a PE teacher why I wanted to be a PE teacher. That was
Yeah.
my career path choice. And we had a discussion, and it was him that actually convinced me to join the military
Oh wow.
rather than going down the teaching role, because it was more I wanted to carry on doing my sport.
Yeah.
I was a bit of a sport billy. That was I take that part of my life from my dad, and that is why I joined the military back in 1991.
So just give us a bit of a flavor of that conversation, because that's a deeply powerful conversation, right? You've got clarity. I'm going to be a PE teacher because I love sport, and so that feels like the natural kind of direction and vocation. And then this person in your life has a conversation, intervenes, and your path shifts and changes. So what was that conversation like? What did he say that made you go, oh, all right, okay, maybe I need to go do that thing over there.
It was quite simply, he said, "Why do you want to teach?"
Yeah,
He knew straight away why I wanted to go into PE because of the love of sport, etc.
yeah,
But he asked me the question why I wanted to teach, and I didn't have an answer. And he basically said, "I don't think you want to be a teacher.
yeah,
You want to carry on playing your sport, etc. And we should look in other areas of where you can do that." So the military came up very quickly in the conversation. Um, he said that not only could I carry on playing sport because it is a massive, massive part of military life, I could do it all over the world. So he basically sold the military to me in that respect. And I realised quite quickly, actually, I don't want to. I don't want to teach. I want to carry on playing my sport, and if I can do that, get paid, see the
yeah,
world, the
yeah.
military was the perfect option.
Amazing. I want to dive into kind of what the transition into the military really felt like, and kind of experiences in that. But there's just something really landing strongly with me, which is he asked you the question of why do you want to teach, and the whole principle of purpose. It's about that question, why do anything, and often the focus is always what is it I'm going to do, and not why am I doing it. And it was him being able to see actually your why is different here. Your why isn't about teaching and learning and educating. It's actually about something different. It's about connection to a different type of passion. It's a commitment to something that feels important to you and meaningful to you, completely separate to the craft of teaching. So how can I get you to see that? How can I get you to think of that? I'm going to ask you why. um, and I
Yes,
love the
such
fact
a
that then made you really consider actually, well, why am I choosing this? And is there a different way? And what might that different way be? Um, so did it work out as you'd hoped by by shifting and changing and moving into the military?
definitely. I would not change a thing of my 25-year service. The experiences, the places in the world I have been, what I've seen. It was my path. I was meant to join the military, and I met my husband in the military. My best friend was in the military, so my support network has come from the military. So
Yeah.
yeah, I owe a lot to it, and I owe a lot to that PE teacher.
And have you ever had the opportunity to kind of go back and see them and speak to them and kind of talk to them about where that journey went to and ended up, or has it just been one of those like serendipitous moments that you haven't been able to revisit?
No, I haven't been able to sort of revisit my PE teacher. Unfortunately, he's passed away, so maybe he is looking down and seeing that that small conversation of 10 minutes had shaped a pupil of his.
Yeah, I think there's just real magic in that, isn't there? In terms of the positive impact that can be had by the right conversation at the right time. Um, but let's dive into that kind of experience in the military. You know, you talked about some of the most significant relationships in your life and in your world were found and forged in that environment. The experiences that you kind of really value and hold dear were in that environment. What what were some of those kind of really standout experiences and moments that shaped you over the course of 20 plus years, because that's a long period of time in your life? Are there moments that stand out above all else?
There are a few, etc. I joined in October '91. I was when I got on the train from Dumfries to head down to Guildford to start my basic training. I was 17 in one day, um, and you do 12 weeks basic training down in Guildford, and then I had to then move after passing out from basic training up to Catterick,
Yeah,
and that's where you do your trade training
yeah.
for the Royal Signals. That was the cat badge I joined. And by the July of '92, um, thinking back to the conversation with the PE teacher that you'd see the world, my first posting was in Germany. So off I got on a plane, flew to Germany, and spent basically the next 6 years moving around Germany in different postings, learning, got promoted, etc. And the big element would be 1998, where I met my husband. And I actually met my husband through sport, playing badminton.
Playing badminton.
Playing badminton. He was in a different cat badge. So he was in the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers, and I was in the Royal Signals. And there's a competition that's yearly, which is called the Intercorps Badminton Competition. And we had to play against each other, and that's when I met my husband.
Hold on, wait. Who won the game?
I won the game.
Yeah.
I always win.
I love it. I love it. That's the makings of a relationship. You absolutely destroyed him on the badminton field, and that was it. It was one heart was won forever.
That was it. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, just let's kind of stay with this experience of being 18, 19, and going over and moving and living in a completely different country, a country that was in transition as well, right? So we're talking early 90s,
Yeah,
when the kind of
92.
wall came down, like 89, 90, and so there was a huge amount of kind of transition and change from a military perspective, but also just kind of a societal perspective over there. How much were you consciously aware of the kind of the impact of the work that you were doing in that country at that point in time?
I wouldn't say there was a massive impact due to where I was actually posted within
Yeah,
Germany. I was posted probably 4.5, 5 hours drive from Berlin.
yeah,
Um, Being a younger or a lower rank, um, I was still in the realms of you are told where to be at
yeah.
what time in what dress. So I literally was just following exactly what my seniors told me to do, where to be and what to be doing, etc. Um, but it was a great experience at that age to be sort of grown up.
Yeah. Yeah, what did that look like? You use that language which is really expressive, kind of grown up. Like what's the grown up, the growing up experience like in that kind of environment?
Oh, it's I think personally it was very easy because of your fellow comrades.
Yeah,
They were going through the same experience as you were.
yeah,
Your instructors, they are trained to a high standard that they can help and assist you go through those changes, from teaching you how to iron properly, wash your uh, wash your clothes correctly, etc. Make a bed so that it's perfect, etc. And it's all done very, very well.
yeah. And so I really love this idea of it was easy because the people around me were going through it in the same way at the same time. Um, what 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 was the kind of how were relationships kind of really forged and formed? You said you kind of met your best friend in the military too. What are the experiences that really kind of bond people together? Like how does that work? In that
I think if I go back to basic
context?
training, you sort of travel on your own from home on the day that you've got to start. You
Yeah,
don't know anybody, I would say, unless two friends have joined up on the same day and they've got the same start date, etc. But you're there on your own and you look round and it's like looking in a mirror because everybody's face is exactly the same as yours. You can tell straight away. Um, and you're going through an experience of the unknown. So relationships are built very, very quickly.
yeah,
Um, you're shoved into a room with three strangers. You're given a bed, a wardrobe, a chest of drawers. You have to unpack and you have to learn at the same time. And you quickly realize working as a team is a way to get through this. So straight away, you want to be part of your room team.
yeah,
And you realize very quickly within that room that there is somebody that is very good at ironing, and you might not be so good at ironing, but you're very good at shining, or as we call it in the military, bullying your boots.
yeah,
So, as a team, because you present in inspections as such, not just as an individual, but as a room.
yeah,
So, to make sure that you pass that inspection, the person that's good at ironing would iron everybody's clothes. The person that was bullying, that's good at bullying shoes and boots, would do that, and you would help. So relationships happen and bonds happen very, very quickly.
yeah,
Some people are very good at first aid, for example, um, but somebody else might not be so good at another subject that you're learning. Encouragement comes out of it. So
yeah,
you're at different levels when you join in basic training of fitness. So you would encourage somebody that's not as fast as you to run a little bit faster, to stay up with you, etc. So
yeah,
in that respect, in basic training, the relationships do develop really fast, etc. And you go through that experience every time. With me being in the Royal Signals, I get posted individually. So every 2 to 3 years, I'd be posted to a new unit. So I would be travelling on my own to a new unit. As time went on within my career, the chances of you knowing somebody in that unit grew,
yeah,
um, because you'd maybe come across them two postings before, etc. So you're always that new person when you sort of come to the unit, and you put a bit of guard up to see who's who and all the rest of it, etc. But I met my best friend through my husband. She was actually posted at my husband's unit back in late '98, and that's when we connected.
And how does like a relationship like that form and blossom and sustain over time when you're in the military and you're moved in the way that you describe?
Effort.
Yeah, brilliant. Just talk us through that a little bit.
So you've got to just put a little bit more effort into your friendships. So pick up that phone, have a conversation, etc. Um, just keep in touch, because there are so many people that you come across that very close in the environment you're in
Yeah,
that posting, for example, and then one of them is posted away, and you simply lose touch. However, there is a special connection with people you meet in the military
yeah,
that you might not have spoken to them for years, not seen them for years. As soon as you make eye contact with that individual again, it's like rewinding the clock as if that time had never actually happened. You just pick up from where you left off. Um, I don't know why or how it happens. It just does.
and I love this kind of insight around effort, because if you think about the experiences that most of us are having in a kind of a civilian context, it's immediate gratification, it's instant interaction, and so the concept of effort, where we place effort, where we focus energy, I think can be the difference between forming and sustaining really high value relationships or making progress against the things that really matter in our lives versus living in a kind of highly reactive, slightly dysfunctional, superficial kind of a way. What, um, given that, and I'm making a couple of assumptions here as I ask this question, so feel free to just kind of slap me around and surface some of those. But um, I'm making the assumption that because everybody is in and serving within the service, there is a foundational bond that exists. So as you say, I've traveled around every 3 years, traveled on my own. You go into an environment and you kind of guards up a little bit, but quite quickly you figure out what's going on, and then poof, you're into it. And if you've been posted with somebody and you've kind of formed a relationship with them, and then they move on in one direction, you move on in the other, and you don't see them again for another 10 years. But when you do, you're kind of straight back into that same place. In order to be able to kind of transcend that experience and create a relationship that feels like it stands out over and above, that kind of that service based bond, what has to happen there? Like what is it that kind of made it look and feel different for you? Because it sounds like this person has helped shape kind of who you are today.
I think it's just true friendship, and the fact that one, you've got more than the common denominator of both wearing a uniform.
Yeah,
Um, you both listen to each other. You're there unconditionally, uh, whether it's good times or bad times. And if you sort of rewind to 98, late 98, the instant messaging wasn't there. So when I say make an effort,
yeah,
if I was in Germany and she was back in UK, you only have so many days leave. That effort would be that you would jump in your car, you'd drive from Germany to UK, and in your 2 weeks that you have leave, not only would you go and see your family, but you'd make a detour to ensure that you would go and see that friend, even if it was just for a few hours.
yeah,
And the military are really good at that. An example which I think is quite good. A few years ago, myself and my husband went on a touring holiday in Southern Ireland. Social media, this is where we are today, because we're moving every day to a new place. And I think it was the third day, a message came on Facebook from one of my husband's friends who he hadn't seen for, I'd probably say 12 years. You're just down the road from me. Do you fancy meeting up for dinner tonight? Haven't seen yet. So obviously the answer is going to be yes. We went for a meal, and during that conversation, I said, so how far were you? You know, so to me, down the road, 20, 30 minutes,
Yeah.
over 2 hours. So he literally saw that we were in his area, as he called it,
Yeah,
and drove.
island.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
and drove over 2 hours to sit, have a meal, to drive 2 hours back to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
And that's what military people do. But you had to do that regularly back in the late 90s, early noughties, because social media isn't or wasn't what it was.
Yeah.
So you had to make that effort. And there's nothing nicer than when somebody makes that effort towards you.
Yeah. How does it make you feel?
Light, as if you're
Yeah.
floating. It's just nice to be appreciated that somebody is willing to drive 2 hours just to be in your company.
Yeah.
That they obviously, that relationship feeds back and forward, that you both feel sort of the same.
Yeah. And you keep using the kind of the reference of and it's like the language, the military. And actually I'm wondering if we just I'm going to try and kind of get you to dig a little bit deeper here in that. What is it about the military and the um, the environment that it creates, but also the kind of the focus of the work that you do that creates this kind of bond that 12 years later somebody's going to travel halfway across the country just to be able to have dinner with you? What do you think is it that generates that type of connection?
I think we've got to go right back to that basic training. That from day one, you were that individual, and when you left 12 weeks later, which is very fast in a
Yeah,
relationship sort of comparison to when you sort of think of other elements of your life, that it's got to be done quickly. It's just, there's more common denominators. You know, you're helping somebody. You get the feel good factor when you do help somebody.
yeah,
Um, there's a trust that it happens very quickly because I'll be standing ironing that individual's kit, and they've to trust me that I'm not going to. I'll get some binary points here and put a little crease in where it's not supposed to be,
yeah,
So there's a trust factor straight away.
yeah,
Um, the uniform, um, it's just a special environment, and it's probably quite hard to explain, really, unless you've been in that. I think the comparison would be a team, a sports team.
yeah. But
Um,
you use some really really expressive language, really expressive words when you know kind of said. I asked you, how does it feel when somebody makes that kind of effort, and you said lighter, like kind of appreciated.
yeah,
And there's just our core emotional need as human beings is to feel valued, like feel like you matter, and somebody doing that and investing effort in that way makes you feel seen and like you have worth and value. And again, just kind of asking you to explore what is it about that environment that fosters that. Really quickly, you talked about the nature of needing others and being able to contribute to others. There's a reciprocation, which is I can't do this on my own, but I can help. And the impact of those two things, which is I feel a connection to you because I'm going to do something for you, but you're doing something for me. And inherently in that, I feel good and you feel good. Like we're in service of something that is beyond our own self interest. Like we're trying to move forward, but move forward together. It's not me moving forward ahead of you or you moving forward ahead of me. It's us moving forward together. And what that then fostered and created in terms of how you felt was trust, right? Because trust isn't an instruction. You can't go, hey, you've got to trust this person. Trust is a feeling. You have to feel it. I feel like I can trust you. You are going to iron. I am going to shine. in the same way that you can go into battle together. It's an extrapolation of the same experience, right?
Definitely. I think trust is so important in every aspect of a relationship,
Yeah,
whether it's professional, friendship, love,
yeah,
etc. It is a foundation block, I would say, trust.
yeah, massively.
Um, but so easily lost.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering now, you um had this incredible conversation that kind of opened your eyes to a different possibility. You and kind of took a leap of faith and went in a particular direction into the military. It cultivated a whole set of experiences that kind of shaped what really matters to you in terms of connection to other people and connection to an entire group of people, and allowed you to kind of make a contribution multiple levels. But then after 20 plus years, you stepped away from that. What was that experience like? Because all of the stuff that you've just kind of described as being really significant and important and meaningful is then shifts massively, right?
I think so. I left the military in October 2016 after 25 years service. But my civilian pathway, I think, started back in 2009.
Okay.
Another random element. I'd done a tour in Iraq. Came off a 9 month tour in Iraq. Then went and I was posted in Germany, and my unit was doing public duties in London. So I went and did public duties in London, finished that the middle of February, and the unit I was with in Germany were preparing to go to Afghanistan, and I wasn't going. You have people that go, and then you've got personnel that have got to stay behind to look after the unit, the rear
Yeah,
party, as it's
yeah,
called. And just prior to the unit deploying, I got a phone call asking if I would be the welfare senior NCO for when the unit deployed, and I was taken aback slightly that I'd be selected to move into the welfare department. Me and my husband had a discussion, and I decided to take a gamble and go into the welfare department.
when you say you were taken aback, what were you taken aback by?
That somebody thought I had the necessary qualities to be in welfare, I think, etc. So I was probably that sums it up nicely, actually. Um, so I took the gamble, and that is when I realised I loved the welfare environment, being able to listen to somebody, give them a little bit of advice, maybe my perspective of the situation,
Yeah,
especially because the people I was dealing with in that time, their partners, mums, dads, etc., had deployed to Afghanistan. So they were left in Germany. Their potential immediate family, their mums and dads, were more likely than not in UK. So I did welfare for just about 14 months, and the feel good factor you get when you put your head in your pillow at night, you realise actually I helped somebody, and it didn't take a massive amount of effort. It was just listening,
yeah,
making them, believe it or not, a cup of tea, etc. Organising entertainment for the children on a weekend because the weekends are long. There's no school trips. There's no work, etc., etc.
yeah,
And just giving them another, instead of being in the house on their own, they had an excuse to leave the house to go and have a Sunday dinner, etc. And I absolutely loved it. So when it came to 2016 and me leaving the military, I knew I wanted to go into some sort of welfare environment. Um, and thankfully, in February, the job with the charity that I still work with came up. I interviewed and I got the job. Um, Technically, I was still in the military until October, but my CEO authorised early release in the June, and the charity were willing to wait until I got out to hold off until I could start. So everything aligned in that respect. Um, Transition from military to the civilian world, practically, I don't think I had a major issue with anything. I had a job secured. My husband and I had already bought our house in Wales. That's where we decided to settle.
Yeah.
And we'd had the house coming on 4 years. It was the emotional side of who I was, where I belonged, etc., that I found difficult.
Yeah.
And it was my husband that actually helped me through that, because he just said, "You're always Jinty. The uniform, the military will never define you. You're Jinty. Nothing's changed." And it was just his words that literally sort of went, "Actually, you're right. I don't need the rank, the ID card, the uniform. That isn't me."
Yeah. And can you give us an example, or examples of of, of what was of where there were moments where you really experienced that struggle more than others? Because I think it's really important and beautiful for the people listening to be able to create that distinction in their head between the kind of the practical and the emotional. So at one level, everything was set. We'd got a place to live that was home, and I've got a job. And so, from that kind of perspective, moving from one to the other was straight, could be seen as fairly straightforward. But actually, that's not the bit that was really meaningful. The meaningful bit was your sense of self and your sense of identity, and where you felt you belonged. So, can you give us a couple of examples of maybe where there were moments where you're like, oh, okay, this feels, I see now the distinction and the difference, and this feels rough, this feels raw, that I'm now no longer part of that.
I think the big one was myself and my husband are big rugby supporters, and autumn internationals. We went down to watch Wales, and we met up with a lot of friends in Wales, and we were stood in a pub, and we we're all talking, etc. And the conversation turned to a policy change within the military, and I had no idea what they were talking about. Couldn't engage in this conversation. I was like, and this was the first time I'd experienced not being able to engage or have an opinion about this. And I felt myself, and the only way to describe it is we're in a circle, and I felt myself, Michael Jackson, out of the group. I'm thinking I'm being discreet.
Yeah.
Out of the group, because I realised then what my words were, "I don't belong,"
Yeah.
because I couldn't engage and I couldn't contribute, etc. And I literally just stepped away, because I felt then, because I didn't wear the uniform, I didn't know what this policy change was about and why, because I wasn't, up in the changing in the policy, because I went out of the military. That was hard hitting. So I took myself away. Had a 10-minute break, etc. And thankfully, when I came back, the conversation had changed, and we were back to rugby and catching up, etc., etc. And that evening, we got the train back up the valleys up home, um, and I was sitting there silent, tears running down my face. And my husband said, "What's wrong?" And that's when I came out with, "I don't belong."
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
the light came on a valleys train after a rugby match.
um, yeah, we won't cover off how many pints of Guinness may have kind of aided
Yeah.
that epiphanal moment, but um, the then if I kind of circle back round to the point you were making before about your kind of husband being able to turn around and say, look, you are still Jinty and you'll always be Jinty, and the uniform doesn't define that. How did you take that and internalize it and make it real for yourself? Because it's all, how many of us get are going through some kind of emotive experience and somebody gives us advice, and it could be the exact right piece of advice in that moment, but actually because of how you're feeling, you're like, sod off. I don't want to hear that, I don't need that right now. Or yes, that might be the right thing, but I don't feel like I can act on it in this moment. How did you internalize it? How did you make that piece of advice real and true for you so you could feel a sense of, you know, comfort and ease and peace with where you were at?
I think I've got to explain the relationship I've got with my husband so that you can understand when he says something, I know it's wholeheartedly truthful, honest, etc.
Please.
So a few examples would be, I found the wedding dress that I wanted to wear. We agreed that he would have an opinion because his opinion to me is the be end and end all. And we went to the shop, and the lady who picked the dress out and gave it to me in the changing room, I don't think realised he was the groom. Don't think she'd clicked at this point. And they started talking. I could hear them talking and having a conversation when I was in the changing room. Put the dress on, came out, and I stood in this dress, which I loved, absolutely loved. And this was the one for me, and I'm assuming everybody that's wore a wedding dress will know that feeling when you've picked the right one.
Yeah, I totally know that feeling, Jinty. I can relate completely. Yeah.
I'm glad you can relate. um, and he sat there and said, "I love the dress, absolutely perfect. But if you want to wear it, you have to lose weight."
Wow.
So you can imagine the shop assistant's face at this point.
Wow.
I went back into the change room, took the dress off, and turned around, walked back out, and he said, "So let's do it." So at the time, and I will emphasise at the time, my husband didn't have to lose weight. Very active rugby player,
And that's
runner,
at the time.
etc.
Yeah, yeah. Double underlined in red.
Yeah, and he said, "So let's join Weight Watchers together. I'll do it with you." And to cut a long story short, he was right. I looked much better after losing the weight and wearing that dress.
Yeah.
So that's an example of Lloyd is 100% always truthful and honest, even if it might hurt your feelings. It might not be what you want or need to hear,
Yeah.
but he is always truthful. So when he said on that train, "You're not the uniform, you're not the ID card, etc., etc., it hurt me as much as it hurt me with "You need to lose weight" for the dress. I knew how truthful it was. And
Yeah.
if anybody else had said it to me, I'm not sure it would have hit home as quick as it did.
Yeah.
That because it was him, I knew he was right. And it was just saying that over and over again. Yeah, it's not the uniform. You know, your friendships you've made, you it's not the uniform that has made those friendships last for that duration of time, etc. My mum and dad being proud, it's not just because I wear uniform, it's all the other things I've achieved. So yeah, so it was him that got me through and realised that it was only because of the relationship that we have.
Yeah. So I'm curious about two things. Did Lloyd escape the shop without getting punched in the face by the assistant? Like
Just,
just
just,
about. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. She, the conversation went something to the effect of, "You can't say that," and Lloyd said, "Why not? It's the truth."
Wow. And then the other bit that I'm really curious about is, um, the two elements here. One is Lloyd's kind of commitment to saying what he believes is the truth, and the trust that you have then been able to build in that. Because actually, you used the same word twice there, which was when he said it at the time about the dress, it hurt, and when he said it about not being the uniform, it hurt. So for you, there was a what most people would hear and go, "Ah, that's a painful experience." Like how are you referencing that in the kind of a positive way? And so I'm really intrigued. I'm really curious about the kind of the nature of the trust that you have between you, knowing that actually the pain is something to pay attention to, that actually doesn't necessarily mean a kind of a negative at all. It's actually something that can be the exact opposite.
I think it's obviously just depending what is said, how it's said, and who said it.
Yeah,
Um, is very much how you can take it and how you can react.
yeah,
If I'd taken a female friend and they'd said that to me, I'd have stormed out. That was it. You're not coming to the wedding. Blah
yeah.
blah 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 blah.
You ruined it.
You know, um, but I think it's just when I say my best friend, I probably should say my female best friend
Yeah,
because Lloyd is actually my best friend. He's my soulmate. We do everything as much as we can um, together. He's all the mortar that keeps me together. He keeps me in line. He plays devil's advocate with me with every decision we make, and I do the same to him.
yeah, yeah,
You see, and I sort of look, and when I talk about us as a couple, I realise how lucky we are because a lot of people don't have it or have never experienced it, etc., etc. Um, so yeah, he's like the other half of me basically, and I know it's a cliche and everybody goes, "Oh," but no, we are soulmates, we're best friends, and yeah, he he's pushed me to things that I wouldn't probably normally do,
yeah.
and sometimes that's not even with conversation; that can just be a look.
and, but what I really hear and kind of taking to heart here is the kind of the authenticity and the experiences that you guys have for each other. Like, keeps me honest in the line, and I do the same for him.
Yeah,
And you know what what experiences must have shaped and formed that over time, and that continue to shape it and form it over time. Because to go through a transition where you feel like your sense of identity and belonging has been shaken, like that moment on the train, but then to be able to have somebody who is able to say, well, that's actually not who you are, you're far more than that, is a gift. Is a real gift. um,
yeah, I think so. I think yeah, I'm lucky. And so's he. And so's he.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. And when he realizes he needs to hit Weight Watchers, then you'll be there for him straight away.
Yes.
So final question for me, Jinty. Like, if there is, you have transitioned into a role where this kind of the significance around welfare is still central in your life, how you support other people, and it's really interesting for me to kind of hear almost the kind of the circular nature of all of this, because the things that you describe the military bringing for you are the exact things that you are cultivating for other people in this kind of welfare role and position. When you think about where you're at right now and you look back over that kind of journey and those kind of key transitions, what are the kind of things that you would go back and kind of say to yourself now, if it was you on the train rather than Lloyd on the train, or if it was you in that kind of the conversation instead of the teacher in that moment? What are the kind of the pieces and the words of advice that you would have for your younger self?
Oh, that's a hard question. I've never really thought about it, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if I would change anything. I think I would like to be able to have the ability that those individuals had to change my paths, my mindset, etc. I think I would like to be able to say that I would have that ability to be able to do that for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because at the time when I had those conversations with those individuals, they said it and it hit home and it was correct, but that was for me. It doesn't mean that if I repeated those words to somebody else, that it would have the same impact.
Yeah.
So I think I have learned in my 49 years on this planet through various people that if you listen, you can usually say the right thing to the individual in the right way because you've picked up on the way that they will react to certain things.
Yeah.
That's how I see sort of what I've learned, etc. If that
Amazing.
makes any sense whatsoever.
Well, no, it makes total sense, because when you talked about I moved into welfare, and actually it was really easy because all you had to do was listen. I remember in that moment thinking, yeah, listening's not so easy for most people. Actually, it's what feels like listening is actually just pausing, waiting for your turn to speak. And so you describing the importance of actually being able to really pay attention and be present to hear somebody else, so that you then know what to say, how to say it, so that it creates impact, feels really powerful and a really magical insight, and actually the perfect place for us to probably draw our conversation to a close. And I just want to kind of finish by saying thank you, and massively love the random elements and the way you describe the random elements that have kind of shaped your experiences today, and where and how you find a kind of sense of meaning and connection in what has been a really incredible kind of career and significant moments of transition. Because for all of us to feel like actually there doesn't have to be a plan, but to pay attention to the random elements can make magic happen, I think is a really inspiring message. So thank you for taking the time to share with us on the Excitable Soul today.
Thank you, James, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Excitable Soul podcast. We appreciate your support and would love you to subscribe, rate, review, and recommend if you can. It makes a massive difference. Equally, if you're interested in uncovering, understanding and unleashing your unique sense of purpose or that of your teams, come and explore our purpose immersion programs at theexcitablesoul.com. We look forward to hearing from you there or being with you on our next episode. Have an incredible day.